Organic chemistry is not your cup of tea. That's what her teacher told her, right there in front of the whole class. He didn't just say it once, he said it like a verdict, as if her future had already been decided. Some students smirked. Others looked away, but the message was clear. She didn't belong. For a moment, the room felt heavier, like even the walls agreed with him. But what nobody knew was that the quiet girl sitting there carried something far more powerful than anyone imagined. And soon, the teacher who tried to put her down would regret ever opening his mouth. It was supposed to be just another day at Eastford University, a place where young minds chased dreams that felt bigger than the campus walls. For her, the lecture halls weren't just classrooms, they were gateways to a future she had always believed in. She carried her notebook like it was a shield, filled with scribbles, diagrams, and equations that only she understood. On the surface, she was quiet, almost invisible, the kind of student people overlooked until grades came back. Her love for science had started years earlier, long before she set foot on this campus. She would spend hours buried in books, fascinated by the way tiny molecules shaped the world around her. Organic chemistry wasn't just another subject. It was her passion, the language her mind spoke fluently. And yet, passion wasn't always enough in a place where bias hid behind polite smiles. She knew being one of the few black students in the department meant she would always stand out. Still, she believed her work could speak louder than any prejudice. What she didn't know was that one professor, a man with more pride than patience, was about to turn her quiet determination into a battle she never asked for. A battle that would expose not just her brilliance, but his arrogance. The lecture hall at Eastford University was silent except for the sound of chalk scratching against the board. Equations filled the space in neat rows, symbols twisting into puzzles that only a trained mind could unravel. The professor, Dr. Whitmore, a man in his mid-40s with sharp features and an even sharper tongue, turned from the board with a smirk. His eyes scanned the room like a predator looking for prey. And then they landed on her. "You," he said, pointing the chalk like an accusation. "Tell us, what's the mechanism here? Or is this too advanced for you?" Heads turned. Whispers fluttered like paper in the wind. She sat still, gripping her pencil. The words weren't just a question. They were a dare. Dr. Whitmore had a reputation. He was known for his harshness, for pushing students past their breaking points. But when it came to her, the intensity carried something extra, a condescending edge that made the air heavier. He seemed to delight in reminding her, in subtle and not-so-subtle ways, that she didn't belong in his world of chemistry. When she hesitated, even for a breath, his smirk widened. "Exactly what I thought," he said. "Organic chemistry is not your cup of tea. You'd be better off in a subject that doesn't require critical thinking." The room rippled with uneasy laughter. Some students looked down, others smirked. A few looked at her with pity. For her, it felt like a spotlight had been turned on, one she hadn't asked for. Every eye in the hall pressed against her skin, but she didn't flinch. She lifted her gaze and quietly gave her answer, her words steady and precise. For a moment, the class froze. Her explanation was flawless. Even the equations on the board seemed to bow to her logic. But Dr. Whitmore didn't acknowledge it. Instead, he tapped the chalk against the board and said, "Lucky guess. Let's move on." It wasn't luck. It was memory, photographic, unshakable. Every line of every mechanism she studied was etched into her mind like it had been carved in stone. But his dismissal was louder than her correctness. It was a theft of dignity, designed to silence rather than recognize. Over the next few weeks, it didn't stop. Each lecture became another trial. He asked her the hardest questions, timed his challenges to catch her off guard, dismissed her answers even when they were right. Students began to expect it. to lean forward in anticipation of the moment when the professor would test her. For some, it was entertainment. For her, it was fuel. With every slight, every smirk, every cruel remark, the pressure mounted. The injustice grew heavier, but so did her resolve. She wasn't just there to pass his class, she was there to prove a point he refused to see. And, while Dr. Whitmore believed he was breaking her down, he was unknowingly building the stage for his own downfall. The day was coming when his arrogance would meet her brilliance head-on, and the whole room would witness which one would survive. It happened on a rainy Thursday morning, the kind where students dragged themselves into class half awake. But, for her, every lecture had become a battlefield. Dr. Whitmore, as usual, was already waiting with chalk in hand, his smirk sharpening when his eyes found her. "Let's see if our future scientist is awake today," he said, writing a massive reaction on the board, twisting it into a puzzle meant to humiliate. "Explain this synthesis step by step. And please, don't waste the class's time if you don't know." The challenge was brutal. Even graduate students would stumble over it. The room went still. Pens stopped moving. Every eye turned toward her, waiting for her to crumble. The professor leaned back against the desk, arms crossed, confident she'd finally break. Her heart pounded, but her mind was clear. She rose from her seat, walked slowly to the board, and picked up a fresh piece of chalk. For a moment, the class held its breath. And then, she began. Step by step, line by line, she unraveled the mechanism, with precision. Her hand moved quickly, her memory flawless. Where others might falter, she carved through the problem with certainty. The board filled with answers that flowed like they had been written there all along. By the time she finished, the board was covered in perfect logic. No hesitation, no error. She set the chalk down gently, as if the demonstration had cost her nothing. The room erupted. Not in laughter this time, but in stunned silence. Students exchanged glances, jaws slightly open, eyes wide. Dr. Whitmore's smirk had vanished. His face hardened, his jaw tight. For the first time, he had no dismissal, no sarcastic remark to shield his pride. He had been outdone, in his own arena, by the very student he tried to destroy. And in that silence, one truth became undeniable. The question was no longer whether she belonged in organic chemistry. The real question was whether the professor's arrogance could survive what had just unfolded. The silence in the lecture hall stretched, heavy and uncomfortable. For weeks, the students had watched Dr. Whitmore dismantle her with cutting remarks and smug tests. But today, they had seen something different. They had seen brilliance answer arrogance and win. One student began to clap, then another, and another. Within seconds, the room filled with applause that echoed off the walls. It wasn't just polite. It was powerful, defiant, a statement that the class had chosen its side. She didn't smile. She didn't need to. Her calm expression said more than words ever could. She had proven herself, not by shouting, not by fighting back with insults, but by letting her genius speak for her. Dr. Whitmore tried to regain control, clearing his throat, fumbling with his notes. "All right, that's enough," he muttered, attempting to move on. But the damage was done. His authority, once unquestioned, now felt hollow. The students no longer looked at him with respect. They looked at him with doubt. Some with disdain. Oh, her, the moment wasn't about revenge. It was about dignity. It was about showing that the very thing he tried to use against her, his doubt, his prejudice, had only revealed his weakness, not hers. In the weeks that followed, whispers spread across Eastford University. The story of the student who humbled Dr. Whitmore traveled from classroom to classroom, sparking conversations about race, bias, and the quiet resilience of those underestimated. Some called it a victory. For her, it was simply justice, and perhaps The greatest lesson of all wasn't written in any textbook or lecture notes. It was this: brilliance cannot be silenced, no matter how many times it is dismissed. So the next time someone tells you what you can't do, ask yourself, are they speaking truth or are they simply afraid of your potential?